Hello everybody and welcome to editing tutorial for Final Cut 10. So basically I'm just going to give you the bones, point A to point B, just instructions on just getting started with Final Cut X, everything you need to know about just starting a new project. And just for the sake of just like workflow and in case you need to go into any other place, we're going to make sure that all your assets are saved on an external hard drive. And for this case, we are using what's called Pub2, and I already opened some of the footage that is in here, and so far I have the raw footage. I have a couple other footage in here that I might integrate within this editing tutorial, but for right now we're going to do a very simple character goes from one place to another, plain and simple. So the first thing you got to do is when you start a project is you got to open Final Cut Pro, and what it usually do, it would start you out on a program, an untitled asset program, but for the beginning part I made sure to close it out so you can see that there's an open library right here, so any other past Final Cut Pro editing projects would be right there. We're going to start basically all in the top left hand corner of the window screen of Final Cut 10, so we're going to start right here. We're going to kick things off with a File, New, Library. And for those of you who like old school editing, other versions and everything like that, a library is what they would consider bins where you would have your sequence, your raw footage, and whatnot. So I'm going to get a little bit more into different names and comparisons than what Final Cut Pro is moving forward with this. All right, so we're going to save this as Editing 101. This part is very important. You always want to click on the little arrow so you have more options to look for where you're going to put it. I'm going to put it in Pub2. I'm going to put it in Editing 101. I'm just going to make sure that it's going to go in my folder. I'm just going to make sure it's all in Editing 101 just for future sake. I'm going to hit Save, and so far right now you got your bare bones. And a lot of times when you create a new event, otherwise known as additional bins and sequences, or if you create a new event, the event right here, it goes to the date in which it is today, the most recent date. The really beautiful thing about Final Cut Pro is that there is no save or save as function, so a lot of the things will be automatically saved as your work goes through. All right, so let's kick things off. We're going to start the first thing by importing some footage. So I'm going to hit Import, and then I'm going to go back to Pub2. I'm going to look over at this folder, and I'm going to go over to Footage, Raw Footage, and you can see that I have clips right here. And so I'm going to click and hold Shift, and then I'm going to click on the bottom one, and that way you want to make sure that all the clips are highlighted. So you can see this is your example of each clip. You can get a nice monitor right there. But what I'm going to end up doing is I'm going to try to leave files in place, but it looks like it's not going to let me. Most of the time I like to leave files in place when I'm using an external hard drive and have my raw footage on a separate thing. But for the most part, Final Cut Pro has the ability to store your footage in it as well. But you always have to make sure that the files over on this side, you just have to make 100% sure that your footage is either linked to the project, the library as it's called, or it's going to be located in the external hard drive, which I would prefer to do, but apparently according to this, it doesn't give me that option. So I'm going to ignore most of these stuff in terms of transcoding and stuff like that. I'm just going to do the bare basics. And so I have my 21 clips. You always want to, it's just some footage that you can work with as well. And so you see here, this is all the footage that I did. You can name each of the footage if you want to. Just in case of this shot, if you scroll through, it looks like it's going to be ground shot. I can always just say ground shot feet. Then I hit enter to confirm, or I can just click out of it, depending upon what you want to do. All right, I'm not going to waste too much time on logging clips, because that's what you would want to do if you have an array of clips. One of the things that I always like to do is when I create a new project, I like to consider this, if you're creating a new Word document, you can do this by hitting Control or Command. And Mac's sake, everything's Command hotkeys, Command C to copy, Command V to paste. Therefore, all that stuff as well. So you can also click for a new project. As you see that my mouse is hovering over new project, you click on this. And what I'm going to call this one is Editing 101. But this is the title of your project. So the project, this is your what otherwise known as a sequence. So if you're an Adobe editor, this is what a sequence would be. So when I'm creating this new project, I'm going to name it, but most importantly, just for my own sake, is that I'm going to date it. So July, and I believe it's going to be on the 24th of July, so I'm going to do that. 2021. You can do 21 depending upon, it's completely up to you. So I'm going to hit OK. And so far it pops up on the very top. You have your projects right here. Then you have all your footage right here. And then if you wanted to create a new bin cache, usually when I have new footage from a different day, you can create it over here. You can go to File, New Event, or you can just as easily go over here. You right click with your mouse, New Event, New Project, New Folder, and that's if you want to add additional arrangement. Basically, it's completely up to you. Your workflow is your workflow. So like always, I'm going to start off with clip 1, and we shot this in order, which for a lot of times is a lot easier. And as you can see, this red line's moving and it follows the clip in real time like this. So you have these guys that are automatically highlighted. So most of the time when you start a new project in a whole new system, these are on. I usually just turn them off. I like a little bit more control. This is, if you scroll through it, it creates an audio so you can hear as you're scrolling along with your mouse, but then again, it's at the speed of your mouse. So we're gonna take it, wherever you click the red line, which is your basically what your viewer right here is connected to. So wherever this red line is in the sequence is right there. And just so you guys know, Final Cut 10 is a little bit different than most editing softwares because of this. See, I'm dragging it anywhere. I can't put it anywhere. One good thing about this is it's definitely avoids having any kind of gaps, which you would have in other editing surfaces. So imagine you're watching a video and there's a spot that just blanks out and it comes back on. That's something that Final Cut 10 has been really good about avoiding. All right, so the next part is that spacebar is your ultimate play button. So if you're using any apps or any kind of video-based platforms online or anything like that, spacebar is always like the key to do a lot of play and pause type stuff. So we're gonna hit play. You're gonna kind of see right here, it's gonna do a whip pan. Then you can see the subject right here. This is what's considered a wide shot. So, you have wide, you have medium, and close. So this one would probably be more of a medium wide because a wide shot is establishing like a whole building, a place where you're at. And as you can see, you're establishing a person, which is why it would be considered a medium shot. So I'm gonna look around at some of my footage. That looks okay. I might just use 2 because a lot of times the second take might be better than the first, so I'm just gonna use that instead. So we're gonna do this, whip pan right to him. And now I'm going to trim it. So you can see here with my mouse, if you take your mouse, you're able to trim it. You can move it from left to right, and it can only extend as far as the clip is. So as you can see where the red is, that's as long as I can make the clip. So I'm going to just make it a little bit shorter because you never know, because when you hit play and pause, the camera shakes just a little bit, and I just wanted to hopefully avoid that. So here he is at what's called a medium shot from the waist up. You can see a little bit of some space in his head. So what I'm going to use is probably going to try to use a maybe medium shot, but I think I'm going to go for more of a close-up. So then you go here. We take a quick look at it. And see, he's waving right there. So what you can do here is if you hold Command and you hit plus or minus, it's right next to the delete button or backspace. You can zoom in and zoom out, and it can really help fine-tune your help fine-tune your editing. So he put his hand up, he's waving, and so what I wanted to do, just to get it, is to make sure his hand's up. So he's waving, maybe something like about there. And if you click on this, it's snap to grid, so it'll basically help you use this red line and you'll be able to snap it right where you need to be. I'm going to hit Command Z. The magic of Command Z is something that will always save you every single time you think you made a mistake. Command Z, Control Z, the ultimate undo button. You can go to Edit, Undo, Redo. Anything that can be done can be undone or can be redone. So remember that. That's really important to know when you're doing this kind of stuff. So as you can see, whip pan, wave, close up. And I also want to throw it over to maybe just his hand. Okay, so you want to get it right at this point. So what I'm doing here is I'm hitting I for my in point. You can do it with your mouse. You can see how the icon changes from this hand where you can grab it, and you can do this with your mouse. But I can't show you the bigger version of this. You just have to look closely as you see this double arrow in which you can control. I'm going to make it about there. Maybe. It's only going to be barely anything that's going to be in the shot. I might just put it at the end. By all means, you want to think of it as a kind of like a sandwich. So I always put audio assets down here below and any additional B-roll and video assets up here. So we'll take a look real quick. Spacebar, hand, maybe not too much of a hand, maybe shorten that a little bit. Because he stopped shaking his hand just at the last moment. So you always want to make sure that the shot that you make, boom, 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 hand. And then the next up is I'm going to get an extreme close-up of his mouth, because the sake of this video is that he is going to want to get some water. So let's just get a nice shot of the water. And you can kind of hear, if you listen closely, you can see some of the water. You can hear the water. So I'm going to throw this just in here. Just maybe he licks his lips, but maybe you want to establish why. Because a lot of times when people lick their lips, it's like, I wonder why they're licking their lips. So I'm going to show the water. Even though that might be a little bit later down the line, I'm going to trim it just enough where you see his waving hand. Water. He's thirsty now. So therefore, he's going to have to get the water. And so you see him taking his first step. I'm going to start it just at the moment of his first step. So I'm going to get to the right point in which I want him to do it. So I look closely at his foot. So I'm going to start from there. I'm going to hit I. And then usually you can drag it down if you want to, or you can hit the hotkey, which any of these, this one is at the end, which I consider append to the selection of the clip of primary storyline, or select the selected storyline, or E for end, where I put the clip at the very end. So, water, thirsty. I'll cut that off a little bit just for time's sake. Then he's walking. So I want to avoid a little bit of that because he's looking directly at the camera, which for the most part isn't a big deal. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to have him walk into frame, and into frame means that he is going to be walking from out of frame to into frame. So this part, what's on camera, what was filmed, would be considered in and out of frame. So he's walking from in and out of frame. I'm going to hit O for my output, and I'm going to hit E again to put it at the very end. So far, it's a lot of just piecing things together, watching, rewatching over and over and over again. And I think it's important to kind of put this together. So he's walking, and then maybe a shot like this. I did not like that shot, so maybe cut this right here. And so he's walking that direction. I'm going to put it at the end, so I can keep on pushing that down. Perhaps I might even just, put this until about here, and then trim this, and then that way, when it cuts to his head, it looks like he's definitely in the same area. See, you see this indication right here, and you can kind of see the computer that it was right next to right here. So he's going to be walking this way. The camera, as you can see, is clearly set to auto, which is why it's overblown right here, and then it automatically resets back to this. So you might want to always be careful when it comes to when you're filming things beforehand. So for right part, I got the water right here, and for this part, I'm actually going to throw it up on top. So this is what's called an overlay, additional B-roll. So I'm going to use the sound from the previous scene, and this is partly with some sound mixing. So he's going to walk. You can see him walk this way, and then I might trim this to a certain degree, or I might I might keep this just for now, and you can move this. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to change my tool to blade, and you can cut it anywhere around here, but when you cut it, it creates this gap. And right here is an empty gap, so you're actually able to adjust and move some things around if you really want to. A gap is really nice to have, especially if you're doing some really in-depth editing. You can always make a major gap, and then you can start bridging it, putting the branches on. I always like to consider footage and all the stuff like branches, and this middle part is your stump. So we're going to have a shot of him grabbing a cup. Oh. And you can hear some sounds in the background, which I want to get rid of. So I'm going to take this. I'm going to put it down here. And so he walks. And so you see this. When your mouse becomes a double arrow going up and down, you can adjust volume. And I'm going to do it all the way down. I don't want too much of the background noise because I'm just going to try to keep it kind of consistent. So he grabs it. See, he's pretty close. I might extend it a little bit more, but you can, because if you go from right here to about here, his hands are not up, so that could be an issue if we look really closely on it. But if you can just ignore a lot of things, and more people are forgiving especially if you're not an editor. So you get the gist of the story moving forward. He fills it up with water, which is, I'm glad I kept the water cooler, so I might actually add the sound in there from it. And so I'm going to cut it here, and then I'm going to find another clip of him drinking the water. So I might actually use this part of it, stop it, because you just have him filling up. I'm going to hit I for my endpoint where I want the video to start. I'm going to hit play. I'm going to put it right about there because I do have a really close-up shot of him drinking around here. So I'm going to use this. Then I'm going to hit Q instead of putting an E, because otherwise it would go out the end right here. So if I hit Q, that's what's called as an overlay. So an overlay is what's put on top. Connect the selected clips to the primary storyline right on top of it, or branching the stump. Another one is you're inserting a selected clip into the primary source, which basically means if I wanted to choose a clip, I can put this, and if I put W, I put it right where it's right in the middle, so it splits the clip as a result. So you have this new clip that's between these two. So I'm going to hit Command Z, and I'm back to square one. So as you can see here, water. He drinks it. I'm going to place it now, hit Q, and you can see the problem with the gap. So you bring it here, and the nice thing about the snapping tool that I turned on right here is that it allows you to snap it. It snaps. See, it becomes yellow, and this one also snaps over here. And then there's different angles from different shots you can use. But for the most part, you got the very big gist of editing. And my advice for you is to go from point A to point B before you do any kind of fancy smashy editing like B-roll, additional audio, and stuff like that. So for the first part of this editing tutorial, I just kind of showed you exactly where you need to go from point A to point B. There's 2 to 3 ways of doing everything. You can do the hotkeys that you see on your keyboard, or you can be very mouse-centric. I always tell people the best way to start is to be mouse-centric. You click on the clip that you want, you drag it down, and then you drag it from the size and you trim it how you want it to. I always like to think of editing as basically copying and pasting your essays, because you use the things that you have, your raw footage, you find the things that you like in the beginning and the things that you like at the end, and you piece them together to make a comprehensive video that makes sense. So, thank you for joining me, and I hope to tell you more about editing.